Thank you for this opportunity to share the work. I'll start with a brief teacher acknowledgement, and in particular to historian of science, Donna Haraway, who was never formally my teacher, but who taught me much. She herself cites anthropologist Dame Marilyn Strathern, amongst other interlocutors that she thinks with and often generously cites as the one who taught her that it matters what ideas you use to think other ideas with. It matters what stories you tell stories with. It matters what knots, not knots, what thoughts, think thoughts, what descriptions describe descriptions, what ties, tie ties. It matters what words make words and what words make story. And beyond the kind of tongue exercise that you get by getting that, I think this is where I would like to share my work today. That stories and images matter for the Earth. This cover image is of these brief notes is the diagram of the Blue Marble Circus project, the project that renders visible the spherical architecture of the world that is inscribed yet not visible within the Pantheon section. This project ghosts the iconic environmental imagination poster child image of the blue marble, all while soliciting another mythology, one that houses within this temple the Earth with its externalities, maybe not dissimilar to the image of the trash bag that NASA intended to leave behind when it completed that mission into space. The installation is a 3D construction of that écorché drawing. It peels off some ribs to reveal and stage a plastic blue marble. The sphere is also here a camera obscura through which architecture projects and narrates new stories of the Earth. Climate, which is apprehended through systems of data and modeling, is inherently mediated. So I approach the climate crisis not only as a calamity of the physical environment, but also as a predicament of the cultural environment, of the systems of representation through which we describe and imagine complex environmental externalities or troubles in their vast scales of time and space. Staying with the trouble, Haraway proposes, is the only ethical option for technological and environmental matters. SF, her term for science fiction, speculative fabulation, is a method that we adopt at Design Earth to open up stories to urgent troubles, and to do that with the hope that we produce more fantastic accounts than those of extractive modernity. In my practice, Design Earth, which I founded with Hadi Jazairi in 2010, I deploy the architectural project as expounded through drawings, artifacts, and narrative as the speculative medium to make visible and public the climate crisis. Over the past 20 years, my work in practice, scholarship, and teaching has engaged architecture as a medium of design research and communication on the environment. These works are foremost pedagogical. They foreground the environment as a transdisciplinary construct first, like in landscapes of energy, as a design research method in geographies of trash, as a series of speculative narratives and various formats of assemblies and geostories, and more recently as experiments in graphic formats of communication, such as Planet After Geoengineering in its graphic novel and animation formats. So the book, Geostories, Another Architecture for the Environment, which is soon in its third edition, is a series of these 14 speculative projects on various portraits of environmental externalities. It's organized into three sections: the terrarium, the aquarium, and the planetarium, which are at the same time references to various domains of the Earth, the land, the water, and the air, as well as to their respective media representations. So geography, the geo and the graphia, becomes the writing, the drawing, the sampling, and the modeling of the Earth. And architectural representation here is the method, as I outlined very briefly in this kind of a foregrounding the medium rather than the story itself. So the drawing, the model, and the archive. The drawing is the tool to unearth technological systems here. It's at once descriptive, critical, and always speculative, such as this drawing from the After Oil series, which correlates architectural skyscrapers with the subsurface fields of depleted oil reservoir, that indexes both the depths and periods of oil extraction as a timeline in relation to increasing heights of tall buildings in the United Arab Emirates. So it's a geological section that is collapsed into a timeline and an architectural profile. The work deploys also the model, such as the aquarium, or somewhere between a model and a sample of the Earth. These cabinets of wonder revisit the kind of enlightenment cabinets of curiosities and cause to educate the eyes on scales of the Earth in an aesthetic that then married scientific and technological knowledge with speculation and fantasy. And here the project-specific aquarium draws attention to the impacts of climate change and mining activities on the ocean seabed, specifically at the Clarion-Clipperton zone in the Pacific Ocean, or in the Trash Peaks diorama, in which it reappropriates the folding screen pattern that assembles the 6 specific projects into a highly stylized landscapes that appropriates a traditional format of the folding screen, typically behind the king, to reconfigure the importance of waste management in kind of conversations on power and representation. The work also curates the climate crisis with a broader archive of the Earth that is found, displaced, dispersed in museum collections. So here, Cosmorama portrayed in a series of drawings, as well as this installation, outer space as an extension of politics on Earth, of extraction, extinction, and waste management in 3 specific geostories, with the centerpiece amongst the series of 3D printed ceramic heads being a meteorite on loan from the Harvard Museum of Natural History. A Fable for Tomorrow is the opening chapter of Silent Spring, in which the influential conservationist and author Rachel Carson gives shape to toxicity in a narrative vocabulary in a town in the heart of America that awakes to a birdless, budless spring. And for Design Earth, fiction is a method to intervene representationally, to plot and give figurative shape to threats whose repercussions are dispersed across space and time, such as this project, The Planet After Geoengineering, which is a story in 5 chapters, in which each chapter paints a portrait of the Earth that follows the deployment of a specific promissory technology that counteracts the effect of climate change by deliberately intervening in Earth's system, at the moment in which climate scientists and policymakers are deeply divided over which forms of geoengineering to pursue, if any, at the moment where we see billionaires launching cars into the atmosphere in a vision of seeking planets other than Earth. So beyond the subject matter, The Planet After Geoengineering is the beginning of an exploration on the effective agency of storytelling, be it in graphic formats or in the animation with an original music score. So climate emergency, the term climate emergency, was the 2019 Oxford Dictionary's word of the year. The pressures of the climate crisis and of social justice have brought cultural institutions and museums to reimagine their role in climate justice and to reckon with their own entanglement in ecocide and in networks of climate desires, be it on their advisory boards or in their funding stream. The American Museum of Natural History in New York contains some of the world's famous taxidermy dioramas with this centerpiece called The Alarm, which were collected, or maybe to be read as killed, on the Smithsonian Roosevelt African expedition in 1910. So this project, Elephant in the Room, not dissimilar to Aesop's fables, the Lorax, or Princess Mononoke, comes to truth through the imagination. The fable confronts the violence of natural history collections by subverting the museological artifact of the diorama in the setup of a shot counter shot that stages calls for climate action. So looking into an installation and looking from the installation out into the space of the museum. Elephant in the Room blows life into the figure of the African elephant matriarch, the central figure amongst the 8 in the alarm scene. It narrates its rebellion as she storms out of the museum and stampedes through the streets of New York City to stomach the legacies of colonialism, sexism, and racism, all outlined by Haraway as the teddy bear patriarchy. So an architecture parlante that comes back to bite at the teddy bear. The 6-minute animation goes full circle with Donna in rhyming verse narrating the elephant in the room. And I'm happy if we have time to share snippets of that later. So this fable comes at a time when we stand to imagine how we will answer to the question, you knew what you had to know, what did you do? Designers and educators, if they consent to this trust, stand in a special position to engage with and compose a responsibility with cultural institutions. And the bigger the platform, the bigger the responsibility. Thank you.